We're in Boston. I forgot the fucking tripods today. So we're gonna try recording random bullshit. And these guys are doing some random bullshit, so we're gonna record it. These guys are going crazy. I was talking to these dudes. I guess they organize this shit and link up at different spots around Boston and do like tricks and shit. The cops shut you guys down a lot? Always?
Listen, motherfucker, stop feeling kids with margarine. They poison the youth and then expect us not to call it quits.
Cops just came through, shut them down. I guess they switch up locations all the time and shit, so we're gonna see what's up.
What the fuck's this kid need 500 rounds of ammo and an AR-15 for?
No, they're not gonna take away guns. Kids are always gonna be able to get guns. People like nowadays, since it happens so regularly, like they think like they could do this.
It's 120 guns for every 100 people. Like, what are you gonna do about that?
Think about it like this: would a mass shooter walk into a school if he knew that every single teacher had a gun, and they were gonna be able to cap them as soon as you know?
Do you feel like America has become desensitized to mass violence?
Desensitized to mass violence. God.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, 100%.
It's like a very polarizing prompt.
Through the television, through the media, through violence on TV.
I mean, of course they are. I mean...
Yeah, I mean, I think so.
I agree. Like, we are desensitized.
Probably, yes. I would have to say yes.
Yeah, a little bit, but like with boundaries to it. So like, what I mean by boundaries is like, I don't think we're all just like heartless fucking bastards. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I think that like thoroughly, it's like when you meet somebody, it's like they have an idea of like, okay, like this is peace, this is violence. You know, not everybody's just walking around fighting each other and being angry. You know what I mean?
Everybody just wants problems.
It's not like that at all. You know, I mean, you can go around everywhere and just see like people are not, you know, arguing left and right. People are not fighting. So I don't think we're naturally, you know, violent at this point. But now I feel like people are okay with it.
We're operating on 350 million people in this country. So if something happens to like 30 people you don't know, it's almost like NPC characters died in a video game.
Like everybody's NPC.
Take a video game, for example, right? Like if we had the video games that we have today, right, like back 30 years ago, like their minds would be blown.
Like if it was Call of Duty instead of Super Mario Bros.
Handle it. You know what I mean? Think about, so when Mortal Kombat came out, right, that's when they had their first like M rating. Right, because Mortal Kombat was like the first game where, you know, people were like, hey, we need to put a rating on this so, like, not everybody's buying, whatever. And that was then. Now, we look at that game like, oh, like it
is what it is, you know.
It's just a head rolling on the floor. It's not a big deal, you know what I mean?
Exactly. So when something dies, unless it affects you directly, you just kind of like, it's shocking, and then we just keep going about our day.
It's like thoughts and prayers, and you keep moving type deal.
Exactly, and our politicians seem to feel the same way.
Politicians are bought, but maybe that'll be the next one.
We don't put enough money into the system to actually change what the politicians that we're voting for are doing, because they're all bought and paid for.
We don't like mental health services and things like that. Education.
Are you kidding me? What's the first thing on any chopping block?
Education.
Administration, any new government or state, local official. What's the first thing on the chopping block?
Education. It's funny the amount of people that are like actually like afraid to talk to me. Like I see so many people like reading the sign, answering the question to themselves, and then just keep walking. They won't even look me in the eyes. It doesn't need to be a tough topic, and it should be talked about. Like we shouldn't be afraid of conversation, because conversation is the only way we're going to get the ball rolling with anything.
It follows a cycle. There's a mass attack. There's a little bit of the shock. There's
Thoughts and prayers.
Thoughts and prayers. Celebrities speaking out. Maybe a little fundraising. Nothing really gets done for the most part, and then we kind of go back into our resting cycle until the next event. And this has been happening for what? I mean, earliest I remember was Virginia Tech, and it keeps happening, it keeps happening, it keeps happening, and it's a cycle.
They're tearing down that school
Oh, the one in Texas?
Yeah, they're tearing it down because they're like, how can you ask a kid to go back there?
Yeah.
Like,
I wouldn't.
no, fuck no. Oh my God. And like that sucks that they have to demolish that. And it's like, where are those kids going to go to school now? Like, are they going to feel safe at another school in another district? You know, like, these kids are going to be fucked up.
It's just been kind of like they're going to place them in another district and still nothing's going to get done to protect these kids better. It doesn't worry you, though, being like in high school right now with all this going on? Like, damn, like, do you ever think like, or look at kids in high school like, yo, like that kid could be that kid or anything like that?
Like, I feel like it won't happen to me. I feel like that's just some like 1 in a billion chance shit. So I feel like if I'm in school, I don't really care, right? And there's always like kids saying, "Oh, I'm gonna shoot up the school," like as jokes and stuff. And sometimes the school shut it down, but I don't think my school ever gets shot up. America is seen as like the place where school shootings, all this like stereotypes, just like there's stereotypes in Africa. You have no water type shit. America now it's like school shootings, all these kids and do all that. So yeah, I feel like we're really desensitized and it's a bad thing because like nobody like they see on the news and then the next day they don't really like give a fuck.
It's like thoughts and prayers to the victims and nothing happens.
Yeah, I feel like some people don't even really mean it either. They just say that just to say that.
Think about it like this. Would a mass shooter walk into a school if he knew that every single teacher had a gun and they were going to be able to cap them as soon as, you know what I mean? I'm all for the Second Amendment, but I do believe there should be background checks because this has had what it's become. You know what I mean? You see people going out there. This kid fucking in Texas, he bought a gun and he went in and shot up the school. If the guy that sold him the gun and said, what the fuck's this kid need 500 rounds of ammo and an AR-15 for? That's my opinion on it. I'm not for banning guns, though.
Do you think there's a solution to mass violence in America at all?
Yeah, probably just not sell like AR-15s and shit to like 18-year-old kids. You know? Or
Yeah.
Even anyone really. Like you don't really need it. You know? I mean, I'm 42. I never needed a gun a day in my life, and I seem to be all right. You know?
People have themselves so wrapped around the Second Amendment as to believing that it is their God-given right to own a weapon of destruction that can kill people. And at the same time, because I'm a proud gun owner myself,
Me as well.
I'm all for it. But, you know, they leave out that whole militia part in the Second Amendment. It's all about money, obviously, because every 4 years, the push from the NRA, from anywhere else, they're like, hey, guess what? They're going to come get your guns.
Yeah.
All day long, they're coming to get your guns. It's not going to happen.
No, they're not going to take away guns. Kids are always going to be able to get guns. Anybody in school could get a gun. People, like, nowadays, since it happens so regularly, like, they think, like, they could do this. Like, we just had a school shooting, and the guy, like, so.
It's like a trend amongst people who are sick in the head.
Yeah, like, that's their, like, new go-to way. Before, they do, like, other shit. Now they go to schools.
I'm not from America. I live in Canada.
Yeah, so that was my next question.
Yeah, and last year, or not, yeah, 2 years ago in 2020, we had a shooting in Nova Scotia where a guy killed 22 people, and we banned handguns and basically every assault rifle because people were so scared.
I'm a gun owner myself, but it's especially in other places. I'm from the South, so like those states is real easy to get a gun. You don't have to try that hard. So it's not that I think people shouldn't have guns, but it's almost, I think it should kind of be like a pilot's license, right? When you get a pilot's license, you can't just start flying for Southwest Airlines tomorrow. You got to start with something small. Thankfully, right. You got to start with something small and then build your way up after psychological evaluations and background checks and continue to work your way up, show that you've been responsible with what you're already allowed to fly before you can keep moving up to bigger aircraft. And I think maybe for guns, that's something that we need as well.
You think there's anything like America can do to kind of fix the problem?
Ban assault weapons and institute sort of like a gun license type system, like similar to what we have in Canada. Like you have to do a course. It's like in a car. It's like driving a car. You have to do a course. You have to take a license. You have to like they do a lot of background checks. Like they call all your former partners. They say like, is this person violent? Is this person like anything like this? But the problem now is it's gotten so bad because so many people have guns, and it's like you can't take away, like, unless you have a very complicated buyback program, you can't take away guns from people.
Like people aren't just gonna, in America mostly, people aren't just gonna go and hand their guns over to the government type deal. So it's kind of like a hard thing to approach.
Well, yeah. So Canada just did a so we just passed legislation to ban the sale of handguns, and there's going to be a mandatory buyback program where the government just buys your guns back and destroys them. So I guess they could do something similar to that, but there's 120 guns for every 100 people. Like, what are you going to do about that? Like, there's people with hundreds of guns.
Coke, meth, all that shit's legal, right? Crackheads, cokeheads, they still got that shit.
I think that it's become too easy to be able to get guns and get things that can make you know what I mean? If you're an angry person, you can yell, but if you have access to guns, then you can do something more severe, and that's what's happening.
Family friend's father who committed suicide probably about a decade ago, like 45 minutes after he bought a handgun. There was like he drove 30 minutes or about 45-minute drive in total to get to the store and back. And like if there had been maybe like a check or even time, like a 3-day waiting period or anything, he might have second guessed that decision. You know what I mean?
Like my husband was just saying, so my husband has a handgun, and if he was to get a card, he'd have to return his gun. But how many people do you think are going to use medicinal marijuana and go shoot somebody? And how many people are like shit-faced drunk and are going to shoot somebody? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the rules don't make sense for where we live in time today.
Violence has been a thing since people have been a thing. Think about it, right? And I'm not saying, like, I'll put it this way. From when we were cavemen to now, right? Humans, as they evolve, right? As time goes on, we become more tolerant of one another. We become more accepting. You know what I mean? Right? So with that, the violence actually lowers. Right? You know what I'm saying? Like, back in the day, like, not even like a race thing, right? Like, let's say you were Irish and I was Italian, right? Back in the day.
That was a big thing back in Boston.
That's what I'm saying. Like, we were both, like, white, right? But, like, it didn't matter. It was like, if you were Irish and I was Italian, like, we didn't fuck with each other. When you think about it that way, right, from where we've come from to where we are now, we've already become less violent as a people, right? And I do believe that as time goes on, that will only grow in a positive direction, right? Because with knowledge, like, kind of brings a little bit more peace to it. You know what I mean? I believe there's always going to be violence to some degree, no matter what, because there's always going to be exceptions. You know what I mean? You can never actually account for 100% of people all the time. It's impossible. That's like an impossible standard, to have every single human on the planet just be, like, totally cool. You know what I mean?
What's up? How are you doing? So you just ignore me. People are so mean. You could at least say hi.
Do you think there is a solution to mass violence in America?
There's no one magic pill that's going to do it. It's multiple things. Is gun control a part of it? Sure. Is mental health a part of it? Sure. Is it getting illegal guns off the streets and at-risk communities? Sure. There's so many aspects to this epidemic of mass violence.
Yes.
And unfortunately, just the political situation we live in is everyone seems to say this is one solution that we need to focus on. There's so many things that we can't think holistically about how we address this, which is the unfortunate thing.
That we obviously have mental health issues in this country, but one of the things that we don't do is that we don't make healthcare accessible. It's super expensive, so that healthcare that people need isn't available to them. And then what happens? They aren't able to get to shrinks. They aren't able to see who they need. And then or their shrink gives them some type of medication that causes homicidal tendencies as a side effect. And then they go and shoot shit up. Like, oh, no shit. So we need to make better health care available to more people.
Every firearms company has very easily can put the technology in, like fingerprint technology in guns. And they can do that very easily now, where just like, the gun won't fire unless the person whose fingerprint is registered is holding it.
Anytime I have conversations about big issues like this, I kind of pretend like it's a river, right? You could try to stop that river, but it's not going to work if you don't stop all the other streams pouring into it. So yeah, you're right. We have economic issues, we have race issues, we have culture clashing. Like, there's all these things pouring into this one big issue. That's why I'm not sure. Like, just like you couldn't necessarily stop a river, because I don't think you can stop all the streams. I don't know that you'll fully stop it, but what you can do is mitigate the ones that are aware of, or build dams and stuff like that to help mitigate that water flow. Same thing with this. We can mitigate this issue. Maybe not stop it entirely, but we could be doing better. Right now, we're just not doing enough.
It should be a therapist's discretion. Your therapist knows everything, right? Your therapist knows everything. They should be a number one advocate if you should have a handgun or a firearm or not.
You think we should have frequent background checks too? Like if you've been a gun owner for a while, maybe we should check up on this person and see how their mental health is.
You know, that's actually a very good question. I've never really heard about that, but
I just thought of it just now, so.
The actual problem, the root and kernel of the problem is rooted in the fact that, like, there's no sense of real community in the United States. There's no real sense of family. The idea of the family falls apart after the age of 18. After the age of 18, somebody can just go and do their own thing or whatever, but there's no real sense of family. Like, in Argentina, it's this kind of very primitive thing, that in this tribal thing with families. And the second thing is the media. Is that sensationalism in the media has grown in a degree that's now irreversible, which is people now, journalists now, are trying to get the headline, you know, trying to get people to click on their thing and say, oh my God, this is terrible, which is, you know, it's good in some kind of parts because it makes people a lot aware of really bad things that are going on that maybe previously they never kind of found. But also what happens is they're really trying to blow up, you know, whatever story they can find. So what happens is these people that are incredibly mentally ill, try to find solace in becoming this figure that's creating mass terror, but still a figure nonetheless. They were nobody maybe before, and now they finally have attention on them. People are looking at them.
It's ironic that we're in Boston, you know? That was important when we became a country, defending our beliefs and banding together to speak up and say we disagree with this, we're being treated poorly, or, you know, whatever it was. That was important to us, and now we're just constantly fighting against each other. If you look up the American average salary and the American median salary, the median is always going to be significantly less than the average, showing that the distribution is highly skewed on the high end. A small amount of people that are earning a lot of money, and the tail end carries a lot more. And that tail end drags so long that the majority of the population falls under that part of the graph. And it shows that that is a problem that is increasingly more serious. General independence at this point is not super easily attainable for us anymore.
I mean, at first, like, we're if you think where America started out, like, you know, the idea is real cool. You can come here, you can kind of build your own, do what you want. But as time goes on, it's like our grandkids aren't gonna be able to buy property unless they inherit it, because it's all gonna be brought up. It's all gonna be bought up. Our generation's already having a hard time getting housing. Like, our grandkids, forget about it unless we buy it for them now.
For me, I have a 24-year-old and an 18-year-old. I am the person that I am because I listen to them.
Yeah.
It's their world.
That's very. I'm 26, so that makes me very happy to hear, because a lot of.
Teach me. They teach me that what I grew up thinking was okay is not okay. And it's because we've educated ourselves, we've grown, we understand that those rules don't apply in today's world.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can't keep growing with today's world, you're angry. Maybe that's what it is. You're pissed off because you don't allow yourself to, like, go with the flow and grow as a human being.
This country needs to sort of agree to disagree, you know? Doesn't mean if you can disagree or agree, but meet in the middle and say, hey, let's have a conversation. Let's be reasonable. Let's be moderate. Let's be cool.
Plugging your business at all?
Oh, yeah, sure, yeah. Yeah, come see me at Florina Pizzeria. It's right behind the State House. You know,
I'm gonna stop in there one time. Next
Yeah.
time I come to Boston, I'm gonna remember that and stop in.
Best pizza in Boston, voted 2 years consecutive. Waiting for this year. We got the Pizza Fest coming up in Fenway Park in October.
Okay.
Yeah.
You said Florina Pizza?
Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna check that out. You own it?
Yeah.
That's what's up, man.